Hi everyone, this is my take on the abortion issue. There are plenty of videos on YouTube to show all sorts of very good arguments for pro-life and for pro-choice, but just felt like I needed to put my view across here. So pro-life or pro-choice, pro-life is against abortion and pro-choice is it's the mother's right to do what she wants with her body. So first of all, I'll point out that it is grimly ironic that the same people who are pro-choice are also probably right up in arms against things like Sharia law. It's ironic because under that hateful Islamic system, a woman has almost no rights, and so she can be beaten up for being raped, or even murdered by her own brother or father or husband for the smallest infringement, without any repercussion to the murderer. Her status is basically subhuman, which is why she can be so ill-treated, and this is why pro-choice activists are likely to be up in arms about her lack of freedom and even protection from these monsters. The irony is that pro-choicers also tag on a similar lack of status to the unborn. In Sharia, a woman can be killed because she is a woman, an arbitrary lack of male genitals. But in the pro-choice worldview, an unborn baby, which they like to just use the word fetus, can be killed because they are still inside their mother. It seems an arbitrary classification due to location. Pro-life advocates, and as you can probably guess I am one of them, are likely to be up in arms about the child's lack of rights and their lack of protection from these monsters. And when I say monsters, I mean the pro-choicers. It would seem morally logical that a woman should be protected by her father. She should be protected by her brother and her husband. And this is where Sharia is an abomination. It would also seem morally logical that an unborn child should be protected by his or her mother and doctor, and in fact even the laws of the country and the world that they have yet to see. Sharia law was long ago established by the strong to give them a mandate to continue to crush and use the weak unopposed. Is pro-abortion law any different? I would argue that a great deal of the time a weak unborn child is brutally killed because they are just an inconvenience to a woman in terms of her career or current status. I think that there is a strong case to say that, horrific as it is, Sharia law is the lesser of the two evils because it affects mostly adult women, and there is an outside chance that they can escape by moving to a different country. Pro-abortion law affects infants with no voice and no ability to choose or move away. Sharia is cultural and religious, sick as that might be. Abortion, however, is personal and intimate. I believe that most people would consider the link between a mother and a child somewhat deeper than that between even a husband and a wife, at least on some levels. Even in nature, we see animal mothers prepared to die to protect their young, while the mating pair is less likely to have this fierce instinct to save each other from threat. The devil loves abortion. A life is taken, people are breaking the commandments about murder, they're probably lying too. They covet a rich, successful lifestyle, and that might have been involved in the decision. The devil loves the deep, lifelong guilt that accompanies this gruesome act. And if he cannot have guilt from you, then he goes for the cavalier attitude that excuses all sorts of other evils. He loves using sex as a weapon. Casual sex probably started the woman on the path to murder in the first place. If abortion becomes easy and common and legal, as it currently is, then it's great for him because it means that casual sex is all right. Because the most dangerous thing about sex, other than STDs, is that we might get lumped with an unwanted child. But now abortion takes care of that, so no problem. Let's have as much casual sex as we want. Who cares about the consequences? Who cares that we are bonding ourselves to others and so tearing ourselves apart? Who cares that we are opening ourselves up to all sorts of disease? And who cares that we might have to kill a baby? Under such loathsome questions, one's heart hardens up and turns away from God because his wrath is terrible. Make no mistake, abortion helps people become atheists out of a deep fear that they will have to answer to him if he exists. And he does. And just a side note before I go on, the good news of the gospel is that even this sin can be forgiven. Please don't buy into the devil's guilt trip. Even murdering babies can be forgiven through the work of Jesus on the cross. If you are listening to this video and you have already had an abortion or been involved in getting somebody else to the abortion, do not turn from God, but turn to him. His forgiveness will cover you. But do it today. Getting back to the devil, it is the motto of Satanism to say, do as thou wilt. Or in modern times, this has been changed to, you only live once. It's sometimes also phrased as, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. Do as thou wilt. It sounds so pro-choice, doesn't it? There's no consequence, just cut it up and suck it out. On an abortion clinic website, I read the following sentence and nearly vomited. The sentence went like this: the procedure is completely painless, just a gentle vacuum which removes the contents of the womb in seconds. That's a clinic near Kingston upon Thames. Note how they refuse to even mention that the contents of the womb is a child. Notice how they say the vacuum is gentle. Really? I challenge you to try to vacuum a chicken carcass with your household vacuum cleaner. I bet it battles to even take off the skin. Now that is a gentle vacuum. But this abortion pipe shreds flesh and bone. Notice how when they say painless, they are really exclusively talking only about the mother. Now, some of you might want to try a moderate stance and say, well, yes, there are definite cases where abortion should not be allowed, but what about rape victims or when the fetus is malformed? Surely some abortion is justified. The trouble is, where do you draw the line? A child with 3 legs? Should we abort that? Or how about Down syndrome? Is that enough of a case for murder? And as for rape, will 2 wrongs make a right? This poor woman has been forced to have sex and now she must also be a murderer. Is it not possible to go full term and then decide to keep the child in spite of the rapist? Or at the worst, put the child up for adoption? You might even say some abortions are fine because the mother is too young. Too young to be a murderer? Too young to make that awful decision which they might have made a completely different one if they were a little older? So young that they can be easily swayed by people and the system to kill their own child? Consider the effect that will have on them later on in their life. And the abortion problem has another line which is hard to draw. As a moderate pro-choicer, some of you might claim that abortion is fine if it happens during the first trimester. Medical science has not advanced far enough to truly know when consciousness develops, and we will probably never know when a soul enters the infant. Trimesters and any law governing when an abortion is okay are all arbitrary time frames or developmental milestones. Arbitrary. When is it all right to shoot someone? When they are threatening you with a gun? When they are running away after hurting you? How about a few weeks later, hunting them down and killing them, for example, for hurting your spouse? When does hot blood turn to cold blood? Each case of murder throughout history is unique. There's a unique set of circumstances leading up to that. There's a unique reason why the person went and committed the act in the first place, and that's why we need separate court cases for each case of murder. We cannot be sure with each and every child exactly when they've developed enough to know that they are a human being, when they've developed enough to feel pain. One thing's for certain, just looking at footage of children in the womb, they are moving their limbs around, they are swimming, they are doing things, and we have to say that there is a human being in there. Abortion can only ever be murder in cold blood. No one has an accidental abortion, a spur of the moment thing. Now, as for abortion doctors, shame on you, all of you. You know very well that the unborn feel pain and can dream and are already alive. You teach people that technically they cannot survive without their mothers, and so therefore they are fair game. Arbitrarily not yet human. What a deception. Even after birth, the child needs their parents to live. This fact is self-evident. On your logic, we should be allowed to terminate any child until they can look after themselves. Under your logic, a 17-year-old who stifles mummy's career can be chopped up and vacuumed out of their room. Okay, now that's a little extreme, I know. But where do we draw the line? What about an elderly person on a life support machine? Aren't they in the same category as an unborn child, unable to keep themselves alive? Isn't the woman's body the ultimate and most intricate of life support systems? Abortion doctor, excuse the pun, but you went from Hippocrat to hypocrite. I'm just doing my job is not a defense. The guards at Auschwitz justified themselves the same way. And even they are less evil because they were under orders. But you, doctor, you are not under orders. You murder for money. Those guards murdered for an ideal, albeit a very terrible one. What do you murder for? A big house? A flashy car? When you lie on a tropical beach, how do you not close your eyes and see all the blood of the innocent children that afforded you that paradise? Quit now and spend the rest of your life counseling against abortion, or you know that God has a vast wrath stored up for you. You are an expert and you hold up your hands and say, okay, maybe life begins before birth. We simply don't know. As if this supports any kind of pro-choice argument. In fact, it negates it. If we cannot be 100% sure, then we should be 100% against abortion. If two huge copper cables were poking out of the ground near to a power station and a person challenged you to touch them and promised that if you did they would give you $1 million, but there was the chance that these cables were carrying a vast and lethal voltage, you would be an idiot to touch them. Since you cannot be sure, you would refuse the dare. If you saw a pile of clothing lying on a darkened street at night, but it could possibly be a tramp who has collapsed in the road, you would swerve to avoid it on the off chance that it was a person underneath those rags. Aborting babies is the same, except that the cables, the electric cables, would endanger your life, and so you wouldn't touch them. But to you, doctor, the baby is nothing. Nothing but a paycheck. Again I say, quit your job and stop killing infants. And politicians, you need to stand up for this issue too. You might not hold the forceps, but your pen is mightier than the gentle womb vacuum. You have said we need to lower abortion, but this is illogical. Since by stating that abortion rates need to go down, you're admitting that there is a moral problem with abortion, aren't you? That the unborn are human beings after all, and that child murder does scar a woman on a deeper level for life. Or is this a case similar to alcohol and cigarettes? We know these things are all destructive and wrong, but we need the tax. We know abortion is wrong, but we need to cull the human race. Is abortion a population control issue for you? Come on, sir or madam, minister. These grisly doctors would not be able to run their practice without your legislation. You even sign bills that fund abortions. You may not see all the blood, but it is as much on your hands as those who carry out the procedure. You address the issue with initiatives to prevent unwanted pregnancy as a placation of your guilt or to woo the pro-life vote. Your attitude would never have seen the abolition of slavery or the rise of feminine equality. And that leads me to address the feminists, who are so filled with hatred for men that they cannot hear an argument, even a good one, if it comes from a man. To them, this issue is about women's rights alone. They cannot and will not consider the infant. They see this as a simple equation. Men cannot have babies, so we men need to shut up. Women are lumped with the responsibility of having the baby, so they alone have the full right to do whatever they like. I wonder how these same feminists feel about self-harm or anorexia. Are they as blithe with these issues? Do they see a woman with cut wrists or a skeletal frame as okay because it is her body and she can do with it what she likes? Or do they rush to support such a tragic figure, to get them into a program or some sort of counseling to stop them hurting or even killing themselves? How do these feminists feel about female suicide? I cannot help but wonder. It is the woman's body and no one else's business, so surely they can kill themselves if they want. Was that a bit too harsh or too extreme of me? Suicide, no, but infanticide, yes? Seems like a terrible double standard they are hiding behind what are good things, women's rights. How about thalidomide? Is it a woman's right to ease morning sickness at the expense of her baby's limb development? Now, many pro-choicers will say no to this, but yes to killing the baby if she chooses to do that. Satan absolutely loves double standards. It is okay to kill the unborn, but not to harm it with chemicals. If women are your concern, perhaps you should see that it is also true that sometimes years after an abortion, a woman is overcome with remorse for what seemed like a good idea at the time. Murder is not right, and if we make it easy and convenient and guilt-free and even promote and fund it, we are merely putting off the cost until later on. The cost of massive and crippling guilt. What mother has long ago had an abortion and can now look into the eyes of her living child and not feel a twinge of emotion that this precious child could have been the soul of the one she murdered in the past? That poor mother is doomed to always remember her first child, which she killed, every time she looks into the one she chose to keep. This is a tragedy that mars what should be a beautiful relationship. Now, as for me, this is a religious issue, of course. I'm a Christian. But I will strongly stand side by side with any atheist, Muslim, or any other person, regardless, who is pro-life. You don't have to believe in God to know that the murder of unborn children is wrong. This is not about faith, if you have none, but it is logic. It is about logic. Now some may ask why I made this video. It seems a little out of step with my other videos. Well, let me put it this way. I strongly believe that of all the things true Christians should be pouring their energy and love into in this world, second after sharing the gospel, should be the protection of the innocent and weak unborn children. We should be educating mothers and thwarting the devil and those who wickedly promote this agenda of murder in the name of women's rights. I'll end with this suggestion. A woman has the right not to be guilty of murdering her own child. And we, all of us, man and woman, we all have the moral responsibility to see to it that she doesn't make that wrong decision, that she is supported in her right choice, and ultimately, and most importantly, to recognize that the infant also has the right to live. Thanks for watching.